This is section 202, using a community text to build intellectual competence and cultural literacy. My name is Mike Cabot, and I'm in the Department of Literature's College Writing Program, which will soon actually be called the Writing Studies Program. So if you hear that mentioned several times, you'll know why. I'm also the current chair of the College Writing Program's Writers' Witness Committee, which is responsible for selecting the texts that our first-year students read each summer, and also help coordinate the fall colloquium with that text author as the keynote speaker each year. Joining me on the panel are Professor Mary Spytalski, also from the Writing Studies Program. Mary has also chaired this committee before and has been central to the development of that program over the last number of years. Also, we are joined by Olivia Ivey, from our colleague from the library. Her connection to the program, in part, is that she has worked not only with our students with these texts, but also with the library's Writer's Witness Subject Guide, which I believe she'll be discussing a bit later. What we'd like to discuss today are the ways in which common reading programs and their texts can be used not only in writing classrooms, but across the university as a foundation for the academic community, conversation, and research. Each year, first-year students arrive at AU having read, or at least having been asked to read, a shared community text. That seems a fantastic opportunity to leverage that shared experience, not only in writing classrooms, but in other disciplines and departments and programs as well. Thus, Mary Spytalski will first give some background on common reading programs and their aims. I will then discuss how the texts are commonly used in writing classrooms, as well as a few examples from my own. And finally, Olivia Ivey will present the ways in which the text can be used as a foundation for more research. So first, there we go. Okay, so first, it might be helpful to have a bit of background on the Writers' Witness Program. Since 1998, the College Writing Program has sponsored the Writers' Witness Program. Each incoming class reads a common text, and the author is then invited to campus during the first few weeks of the semester to discuss their work. Various groups often meet with that writer throughout the day, groups of students, groups of faculty, culminating in the writer addressing the entire incoming class in Bender Arena that evening. College writing classes then use this shared text in their initial in-class discussions and in writing assignments. This then is a list of the past Writers' Witness selections, our most recent being Ruben Castaneda's S Street Rising. The texts are all works of nonfiction. Many of them have a narrative structure, though many of them also include things that we value in academic writing, like research, citation, and argument. So this is our past selections. I'll be discussing a couple of these in the context of the classroom shortly. But first, I'd actually like to turn this over to Professor Spytalski for more on common reading programs in general.
Hi. So again, a background on common reading programs. I just wanted to note right away what some of the most relevant literature is that from which I got the information that I'm about to present. Michael Ferguson wrote Creating Common Ground, Common Reading in the First Year of College, and Andy Twitten, Common Reading Programs in Higher Education. But by far the most comprehensive text is a monograph put out by the University of South Carolina and their National Resource Center for the First Year of College and for Students in Transition, and that's Jody Levine Lofgraven's Common Reading Programs Going Beyond the Book. Our working assumption then is that common reading programs play a key role in the first year experience and that they enable success as students transition to the culture of the academy. So in order to understand whether that's true, we need to understand how first year success is defined. So I'm going to be referring to a text by Upcraft, Gardner, and Barefoot. Lee Upcraft is a research associate at the Center for the Study of Higher Education and co-editor with John Gardner of the Freshman Year Experience. John Gardner is a senior fellow at the National Resource Center for the First Year Experience and Students in Transitions, which he founded in 1986. And Betsy Barefoot, terrific name, is a co-editor and senior scholar of the Policy Center on the first year of college, and also a fellow with the NRC FYE, basically all associated with that National Resource Center for the first year of college. And in their handbook, challenging and supporting the first year student, Upcraft Gardner and Barefoot define first year success as the development of intellectual competence, establishing and maintaining interpersonal relationships, exploring identity development, developing multicultural awareness, developing civic responsibility. Here at AU, we have many programs that are aligned with those goals for enabling first-year success, beginning with Eagle Summit. Of course, we have AUX courses coming up, which explore and it helps students explore and establish goals, create and define their identities, and connect them to the campus community. Community-based research studies courses also emphasize responsible and meaningful service through community-based research opportunities. And then, of course, we have our writing studies courses, including the Common Reading Experience. So you can see how some of AU's programs really align with what's been identified as elements enabling first-year success. So there are many ways that we do seek to enable that success, and it raises the question of what makes a common reading program an effective tool in doing so. What do these programs typically aim to do? And from that, I'm going to draw from Lovegraven, who writes, common reading programs contribute to student success because they emphasize reading as an intellectual skill central to student achievement and promoting learning with and from others. Lovegraven also notes, though, that asking students to read a selected book is not enough to make a claim that common reading initiatives promote student success. Rather, common reading initiatives are successful when they set expectations for student success, when they model academic behaviors, when they foster involvement, and when they promote more meaningful learning. So just to kind of get into those elements one by one, setting expectations for student success means that a common reading program sends a message early in the student's transition that reading and discourse are expected in college. And as we all know, college requires effective written and communication skills. So that can include discussions, presentations, essays. The ability to interpret and evaluate information, so that means analyzing how the community text uses its own sources, or analyzing sources that respond to the community text. And understanding that the analysis of text and the communication of ideas occurs within complex systems and among diverse groups. When we host discussions, collaborations, or encourage cross-disciplinary research, we're trying to meet that goal. And then college also requires an ability to transform information into knowledge, and knowledge into judgment and action. And we see some of these objectives met through assignments like proposals or through involvement in student groups. In terms of modeling academic behaviors, a community reading program establishes an immediate intellectual community of first-year students. And we think about students discussing their summer read in their dorm and on formats like social media. We have Facebook and Twitter pages. So immediately they're sort of joined in that intellectual community. In courses, we start the semester with early small group discussions focused on the community text. In these discussions, we emphasize critical analysis. We allow students to draw parallels between their identity, their experience, and the text. And then in terms of this, you want to think about how identity or a sense of belonging not only enables student success academically, but keeps them healthy and helps us retain them. These early small group discussions also demonstrate the practice of free expression and the value of civil debate within the academic community. Later on in the semester, students tend to write thesis-driven essays that are related to or inspired by the community text. These assignments provide a foundation for information literacy and a gateway to research, which Olivia is going to talk about more extensively in a little while. And they demand critical thinking through raising significant questions, challenging assumptions, and helping to refine generalizations. In terms of fostering involvement, we actually hope to do a lot more of this by raising the profile of the program, part of the rationale behind this panel today. Cross-campus and community-based learning opportunities do sometimes figure into our text selection as well. In the past, AU student veterans have reached out to us offering to visit our classes and to extend discussions sparked by the Good Soldiers previous selection. Previously, an alternative spring break organized a trip to fracking country in Pennsylvania, inspired by our selection, The End of Country. So, common reading programs tend to help merge the curricular and co-curricular components of college education and reinforce the message that learning occurs inside and beyond the classroom. They provide an ethos of learning that pervades all aspects of the institution. We see those goals aligning with community-based research courses, as well as with elements of AU's Statement of Common Purpose, where we see practical application of knowledge takes place through experiential learning when students take full advantage of the resources of the Washington, D.C. metropolitan area. So those are just some of the ways that a community reading experience can foster involvement, not only within but beyond the classroom. In terms of promoting more meaningful learning, of course, we want to ask what we mean by more meaningful. And in this context, it means student-centered learning as opposed to the banking concept of education. We know that that boosts comprehension and retention of information and also helps close achievement gaps. And if you want to learn more about student-centered learning, certainly CTRL can provide you with more information, including studies and practices of the active learning paradigm. So from Lovegraven, when students read a common book, they are given the opportunity to engage in the type of higher order, integrative, and reflective learning that Barr and Tagg describe. Students are then the chief agent in their learning process. And so just to display a slide that kind of defines that learning paradigm as opposed to an instructional paradigm. And this goes by many words: active learning, flipped classrooms, student-centered. The goal is to improve the quality of learning, not just the quality of instruction. Faculty are primarily designers of learning methods and environments. And again, that speaks back to students being a primary agent in their own learning process. But how do you know that a common reading experience achieves its potential? Certainly, there have been criticisms that such programs are increasingly common, but they have had limited assessment of their outcomes. And that's true. Yet the 2012-2013 survey on first-year seminars, where common reading experiences typically take place, both designates common reading experiences as high-impact practices and addresses the question of their quality and efficacy. So high-impact practices include first-year seminars, learning communities, writing-intensive courses, undergraduate research, diversity or global learning, etc. all of which are really well aligned with our common reading experience and the selection of the texts that we've had over the past 16 years. That said, a single discussion of a text does not use the initiative to its fullest potential. So without intentional and systematic integration of the common intellectual experience repeated throughout the first year curriculum, or at least the seminar, opportunities for students to engage each other around the experience are left to chance. So again, with that in mind, we try and develop initiatives within our program, as well as reach out across the campus and try and help foster greater involvement beyond the program. So I looked into some of our regional and market basket schools to see what students are reading at peer institutions, or what they read in 2016 at peer institutions. It's worth noting that the National Research Center for the First Year Experience keeps an extensive list of selections from universities all across the country and across a span of years as well. Boston College read A Chance in the World, and that's a memoir about an orphan who withstood various forms of abuse throughout the foster system, but went on to be a successful business executive and to find out quite a bit more about his past. Most selections are nonfiction selections, but not all. So Loving Day at Bucknell University it's a novel that addresses race. Between the World and Me by Ta-Nehisi Coates probably needs no introduction. It's become such a paragon of writing about race in the modern age. Stealing Buddha's Dinner and The Dorito Effect were dual selections at Lehigh, and they are about food history, food culture. Going way back to Cicero, Loyola, Maryland, selected How to Win an Election, pertinent to this past year. And you can see Tufts and University of Maryland also are kind of choosing selections that speak to the most exigent issues of our day. Other criticisms of common reading experience come from the National Academy of Scholars. I've got a link there. I've got links to the previous slide selections as well if you want to learn more. But the National Academy of Scholars said that we found the preponderance of reading assignments promotes liberal causes and liberal sensibilities. Of the 180 books, 70% either explicitly promote a liberal political agenda or advance a liberal interpretation of events. By contrast, the study identifies only 3 books, less than 2%, that promote conservative sensibilities and none that promote conservative political causes. Other criticisms from the National Academy of Scholars include that most selections are pitched at an intellectual level well below what should be expected of college freshmen, and they rue a dearth of the classics. Citing high costs and a lack of evidence of their success, Purdue President Mitch Daniels abruptly cut their common reading program over the winter break of 2014, a controversial move which is still being addressed at Purdue. In response to these criticisms, I would say that our program feels that its investment in diversity is in line with the university's values and increasingly essential. And while we reject the prioritization of a narrow Western canon, the Department of Literature does offer courses in the classics that we encourage people to take. And although we have sometimes struggled with budgetary concerns that have limited our options, we do believe that the program is successful in helping us achieve desired outcomes in dynamic ways. And Mike is going to now talk more about those outcomes and ways.
Okay, so I'd actually like to begin by talking about how we use these texts in writing courses, in the writing classroom. However, as I move through some of these kind of modes and ways, they begin to be focused less on teaching writing skills explicitly and more on larger intellectual practices and competencies. Things like the habits of mind that we wish to instill in students in any discipline. Many of those things, I believe it was Lofgraven that Mary discussed, who talks about these things that we aim to do in college in general. So in the writing classroom, there are a number of ways that these texts are often used. We do use them, obviously, to help foster critical reading, right, and develop strategies for doing so. We also, again, identify and practice effective writing choices. We use these texts to help students and readers understand the work of academic writing as joining a larger conversation. And we also then help them develop broader habits of mind for critical thinking, for writing, and for research. So I'm going to break some of these down and talk about some examples of ways that these texts help us foster discussion, foster further understanding of writing, and also to tie into the next segment, foster research. So one of the ways that we actually are starting to talk about writing is to really talk about reading. Many of us have found that we are teaching reading and reading strategies and information literacy as much as we're teaching the practice of actually putting one word after the next. One of the ways that many of us have addressed this is through notions like those of Mike Bunn from USC. In his text, it's an essay written for students as naughties called Reading Like a Writer. And in Reading Like a Writer, Mike Bunn says, when you read like a writer, you work to identify some of the choices the author made so that you can better understand how such choices might arise in your own writing. The idea is to carefully examine the things that you read, looking at the writerly techniques in the text to decide if you might want to adopt similar or the same techniques in your writing. You're reading to learn about writing. So we kind of help students understand the choices that other writers make, see if they would make similar choices in their own writing, and understand the central role that reading plays in the writing process. So an example of a noteworthy writerly choice that I remember having discussed in detail with my students comes from our 2013 text by Eula Biss, which is a collection of essays entitled Notes from No Man's Land. In this text, Eula Biss discusses a number of issues, including race and identity and diversity, amongst other things. And in one of her essays, in fact, in the first essay in the book, Biss opens with a history of the advantages and changes and benefits that an intercontinental telephone system brought to the U.S. Then, after an abrupt break, she shifts to explore other things that telephone poles have been used for. And as you can see here, she ends with Thomas Edison declaring that annihilated time and space, that the telephone has annihilated time and space and brought the human family closer in closer touch. Then there's a paragraph break, and the next sentence is in 1898, in Lake Cormorant, Mississippi, a black man was hanged from a telephone pole, and then continues to list the number of times that black men have been hanged from a telephone pole. Now, students saw this as a kind of shocking kind of move. They were reading this thing about telephones and how great they are and how interconnected we are, and then there's this break. And so this was a great kind of moment to show how the choices the writers make in terms of not only what they put in the text, but how they organize it, right? How they set it up, can drive purpose, can drive argument, and even a small moment of transition can have that effect. So this is an example of how we talk about writing as a series of choices and help students make effective choices in their own writing. So again, part of what we use these texts for is to practice these writerly choices. Okay, our focus around this semester is on critical reading and then often responding to those texts through that critical reading. This then necessitates a focus on how a writer effectively and ethically incorporates that source material. So we have them practice quoting, paraphrasing, and summarizing other sources as well. This is obviously a very kind of writing-centric use of these texts. This can, of course, be done with any of these texts, and so I won't point to a particular example.